My first year here at St. Monica's, I've had a number of themes in my preaching. I know too, and again, kind of my vision for what I hope St. Monica as a parish becomes. One of the themes is, you probably have recognized this by now, is just the idea of a regular, sustained personal prayer life with God, 20 minutes a day, that quiet solitude with Him. So the personal prayer life, and also to evangelize, to spread, and to further the faith, to make it, we should grow. So that idea of we're on to grow the gospel through Christ. Today I want to talk about two other themes that we're working on here. The U.S. bishops this past summer have declared the need for a Eucharistic revival in America. So for the next 2 years, in different ways, there's going to be this push to revive and strengthen, excite our Eucharistic devotion. Now, you may or may not have heard about the 2019 Pew study about Catholics and what they believe. Apparently, only 30% of Catholics believe in the real presence in the Eucharist. You know, polls, who knows? But it does reveal that there is an issue there, whatever the exact percentage. And then, of course, COVID has had a negative impact as well. We have been, when you can't or you won't come to the Eucharist, it has an effect. It has a negative effect. And there's positive reasons for the revival as well. The very idea of, what a great gift. This is the ultimate gift of the faith, is Christ is present in the Eucharist, and we can receive Him and be united with God in that. Again, this is the great gift. Think about that in terms of this passage from the Gospel today. You cannot serve both God and mammon. Now, mammon it's a complicated explanation, but rooted in this idea of this false god of the surrounding region, and this idea of, in this case, this worldly wealth or this worldly success, a false idol. So you can either be God can either be your master, you can worship God, or you can worship the world, this, whether it's wealth, status, power, whatever it is, this false god. And which is it going to be? Because ultimately, you're only going to serve one. And so how do we develop this worship, this adoration, this relationship with the true God when we have all these pressures on us to worship these false idols that just surround us? And always have. This is not a new problem. So that's where Jesus and the Eucharist come to our rescue. So what does this worshiping the true God look like? Certainly, it means coming to Mass, receiving Jesus in the sacrament, personal prayer. So again, these themes are interrelated, right? They're connected. So one way we grow, though, so besides receiving the sacraments, reading the scriptures, personal prayer, another way, important way, we have as Catholics to grow in our devotion and faith in Jesus is to worship Him in the Blessed Sacrament outside of Mass, as an addition, as a support for what we experience in the Eucharist. So we have, as Catholics, a devotional practice called exposition. Exposition, Latin word, just means to expose or to show, to reveal. And so what we do in exposition is that we place a big consecrated host, Jesus, in a monstrance. So I know some of you know what a monstrance is, but some don't. So it's this instrument right here on this table, this cross-like, it comes in different shapes. But this idea, this display, instrument of display. Monstrance just means in Latin to show or to reveal. So we put the host in the monstrance, put this on the altar, light the candles, and then we can pray in the physical presence of Jesus. So we come into the church and we adore Jesus exposed in the Blessed Sacrament. Now, we can already do that in our Blessed Sacrament Chapel. I think there are members of our parish who don't even realize we have an adoration chapel. Back in that far corner of the building, you enter it through the side door from the outside. Can't get there from inside. It's locked, but I'm going to give you the secret code, 4301 pound. 4301 pound gets you in 24/7. Don't give away just to anybody. Now, we also, the parish school, in light of the revival the bishops have declared, we are now going to do exposition and benediction once a month as a whole school. So we have that as well. But I want to invite, so today, one of our themes is, let's become an even more Eucharistic parish. So one way we do this is I want everybody to come to the church and worship the Lord together. So beginning this Friday and from here on out, every Friday from 6 to 7 p.m., we will have exposition and adoration in this church. So Jesus will be exposed on the altar, light the candles. I'll be back in the confessional, so if you want to go to confession too, sort of a one-stop situation here. Prayer, confession, Eucharistic devotion. Now, and again, you might say 6 to 7 on Friday seems kind of, I don't know, not necessarily a great time. But you probably have it available. And even if you're going out someplace, this is a perfect way to start. Strengthen yourself 6 to 7 so you don't get in trouble from 7 to midnight. You know, you get in there and you say, okay, I got my priorities straight, and now I can go have fun. So again, as part of the revival, I'm eventually going to be asking every parishioner to sign up and commit to come to the church and worship the Lord on a Friday evening at least once during these 2 years. Again, everybody should at least experience this. Now, that's not yet, but right now we do have volunteers to be here on Fridays. You always need one adorer. Whenever the Blessed Sacrament is exposed, you can't have an empty church. You always have to have at least one person praying. So who is my God and Master? Seriously. Jesus, Mammon, the world, God. I can tell you this from personal experience. Spending time in front of the Blessed Sacrament, outside of Mass even. So I'm not just talking about going to the Eucharist, but regularly parking yourself in front of Jesus in quiet. Again, 20 minutes of prayer, see how these unite? They're all together. That does something to us. Over time, there's impact. Give it a shot. Try it. St. Monica has always had in the Archdiocese has had a reputation of being a Eucharistic parish. You had one of the first adoration chapels on Western Washington. And so I would simply say, is that still true? How do we increase that devotion? Because if we want to get involved in personal prayer, this is an interesting thing. If we want to go out, we first have to turn in so that we can be strong in Christ here, so that we can share him out there. Again, these are all going together here. So, Eucharistic parish. Now, short little homily kind of on the Mammon of the God. I want to give you the fourth theme that I have for the parish. When I came here last year, one of the things I noticed was how quiet it is at Mass. And you might think that's a good thing. And reverence in church is a good thing. It's wonderful. But it can be too quiet. What I mean by that is there doesn't seem to be enough children here at Mass. Seriously. I kind of miss the sound of crying babies in church. I want somebody to interrupt me. I want to struggle through the homily. Now, perhaps you don't. Perhaps you are disturbed by the crying. You can't hear the homily. You can't pray. Will you please keep that kid quiet? But think of this. The sound of crying babies is the sound of the future. That's what the future sounds like. Without children, there's no future in the church. And I've seen parishes and other churches to close because they've gotten terminally old. So a parish, or any other denomination, you can drift by for years with only, let's say, mature parishioners. But at a certain point, you reach that tipping point, the terminal point, where you're doomed. And you know for sure the doors are going to close because there's not enough kids. And that means all you have is the older people. And when a young family comes in with children and they look around some Sunday and they say, there's nobody like us here, they will not come back the following Sunday. That's when you're terminal. Again, you can go for a decade or two, but you're just going to keep shrinking, getting older. So, I want everybody to be welcome at St. Monica's, but I especially want to be a parish that welcomes and enjoys crying babies and their parents. Now, because I like children and children cry, so you just have to take them. This is the way it is. So if you do not have young children with you, do not glare at those whose children make a fuss, because babies cry. That's what they do. So smile, because that little one might be an altar server at your funeral, could be your future pastor. Again, this is where it's coming from. For those who do have small children who do cry, thank you. Thank you very much. You're the star. Because I know it's a lot of work. You had a lot of trouble to get them here. It's a logistical nightmare. And if anybody tells you shouldn't bring your children until they're older, or suggests that they're poorly behaved because you're a bad parent, you can tell them, and you can quote me, Father Nagel told me he wants us here, so there. That's the comeback. Now, let me be clear. There's a difference between a yelp and a meltdown. There's at some point, parents, where you know, this kid's not going. Yeah, this isn't going to stop. You need to get up, then you go back into the vestibule, and you wait till they quiet down, then you come back in. Catholic parents have been doing that for centuries. But still, bring your children to church because, yeah, they're going to cry. Again, that's what kids do. But let them grow up in this building thinking it's normal to come to Mass. That this is just where we are. It's really hard to get a child to come back to church come to church at 12 or 13. Make it normal. So bring your kids to church. They're the future of the body of Christ. So I want to be a parish for all ages, but especially I want St. Monica to be a parish for the next generation of Catholics. So that's the key. If you want to evangelize, you got to be at least young at heart. There has to be the sense of there's a future. And it's really hard to evangelize if you look into our parish and there's no future here. How am I going to go out there? So we want to capture those families for Jesus so that they can raise their children in the atmosphere of the grace of the gospel here. So St. Monica's has had this reputation of being a Eucharistic parish, certainly. But what I really would like it to be is I want it to be the reputation, well, that's the loud church. That's where the babies are. There's lots of kids there. Because that means, well, that's the church of the future. And again, Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And so let the children come.